Well, hello everyone. It's been a while since I've made a video, principally because I haven't really had much to report on, but I've done a few little things to the car, not a lot because I've had some pressing things to do around the house, but I thought it's probably about time I posted something. So there's a couple of things that have been happening. It's turned into autumn here in the beautiful Adelaide Hills. Perfect day today. I've taken off the front fenders or mudguards and the doors in preparation for paint, and I'm having a bit of trouble getting enthusiastic about that, so I don't quite know when that's going to happen. As you will know from one of my earlier videos, I was trying to do some pathetic repair attempts on this gauge here, which was beyond me, so I sent this off to Melbourne. There's a company in Melbourne, over in Victoria in Australia, who repair these. And it's a family company, I won't name them. They ended up doing a good job, but it was a little bit of a process to go through. They initially sent me back the wrong one, and I returned it to them, and then they sent me back the right one, but it had the wrong connection for the head down in there. And then they sent me back the right one, but it was too short. So after I'd returned it to them 3 times, the capillary was too short on it. So I returned it to them 3 times, and now I've finally got it in there. And you can see it. This is the capillary from this gauge that runs up through the dashboard and into the back of the gauge. So now that I've got that fitted, I thought I would start the engine, which, as anybody who does restoration will know, is a real milestone. The dashboard, from one of my previous posts, the light's probably a bit dappled here and a bit hard to see, but the dashboard has turned out really well. I'm very pleased with it. I have to repair the steering wheel. It's cracked in the usual places. The centerpiece I repaired a while ago, and I did that before I started making videos, which is a bit of a shame because that's quite an interesting thing to pull to pieces. There is some stuff on the internet about that, but anyway, so a few things. I put some current into my new loom. I used a battery charger first so that there wasn't a lot of power going through there, and didn't see any clouds of smoke, so that seems to be fine. Everything that works that's wired up seems to work. The fuel gauge, the wipers, the heater blower, the ignition, everything is okay there. The fuel pump works. In fact, if I turn that key on, you can probably... There's that. The pump is down in there, of course. I hope you're getting that, but there we go. And of course, as soon as that equalises the fuel, it will stop ticking. There don't appear to be any leaks in the fuel lines, which is good. I sort of expected that. After a large rebuild, to get everything right first time is actually pretty difficult, even though I was fairly careful, so I'm very happy about that. I put a couple of litres of fuel in there, and that seems to be enough. One of the things I did note, and I'm going to have to try and sit down here, and this initially caused me some concern, was that when I move the gear's in neutral at the moment, but if I move it towards 4th, in overdrive, you can see that little, I think you can probably see, that's the other side of the solenoid that's moving. See as I move that? So I thought, well, that's great, the solenoid works, and it's the original solenoid. I don't know yet whether the overdrive works, I've rebuilt it, but we'll see about that. If I turn the dash switch off, this is still clicking, and I thought, right, there's a problem there with the contacts or the wiring or something, and I've faffed around with it for ages, and I couldn't work out why that was still doing that. But then, of course, if I put my foot on the accelerator and press the accelerator, it stops it doing it. So that's the little switch that's attached to the accelerator, the throttle switch, which stops you from shifting out of overdrive unless you've got your foot on the throttle. And I didn't quite understand how that was working. So that all appears to be okay, which was quite pleasing. It probably will need some adjustment, but it does work. So this is the, I'll just go around the other side of the car. And just for your interest, these are the oils that I've used on the car. I've used Penrite oils. I think they're very good, and I believe they're an Australian company, so it's nice to use local products. This is a running in oil. I think it's very important to use a running in oil on a new engine. It's not friction modified, as you can see there from the little, which allows the pistons and rings to bed in properly. Now, of course, the car's not drivable at the moment, so I thought I'd start off with that anyway. And I did that with my MGA, and it really, the engine is just beautiful on it. It hardly uses any oil at all, which is unusual for a British car. This is the oil I used in the overdrive, and I wasn't quite sure what to use in that, and I've read quite a bit of stuff about it. This is actually a straight 30 weight, and again, it's a non-friction modified, which I think is important for the synchros. It's used in small 4-stroke engines, so I thought I'd give that a go and see how we go. And this, of course, is just the rear axle gear oil. So what I did was I turned the, I'd like to say this is the first time I've started the engine, but that really wouldn't be true, because I have started it before, and it ran all right. I'll show you in a second. So what I did was I turned the engine over on the starter motor without the spark plugs in it, just to get the oil pressure up, and that didn't take that long. And then I just sort of turned the switch and it went. So I sort of started it by accident. I was really going to film the first time that I started it, but it was sort of accidental. So I haven't started it this morning, so we'll see how she goes. We'll give it a bit of choke. Now the choke on here is actually underneath the dash, although I think that it's probably supposed to be on the parcel rack on the right hand side cars. I'm not quite sure. Right hand drive cars. So let's see what happens. There she goes. I'll push the choke in a bit. I don't know whether we need it or not yet. And I haven't got the tachometer up, so I don't know how fast we're going. You can see the oil pressure there is pretty good, and she actually sounds pretty sweet. I don't know whether we're going to run out of fuel or not. And I'll give it a little rev. And it's all very nice. However, there is a but. I have a problem, and it probably won't show up on the camera. Sounds like we're running out of fuel a bit on the camera, but down here in the joint between the head and the block, I am bubbling something. There's clearly a leak underneath there, and yeah, it sounds like we're running out of fuel because the petrol pump is going a bit ballistic there. This is a bit of a problem. Well, actually it's quite a lot of a problem, because I'm really not sure why that would be there. I'm going to turn the engine off, because the fuel pump, you can hear rattling away there, is driving me mental. I think I must be nearly out of fuel. So there's a leak between the head and the block. Now, I've had both of those planed. When I discovered that, I took the head off and retorqued, and certainly the head bolts took a little bit of torquing, but it really hasn't solved the problem. So unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to remove the head and replace it with a better gasket. The head gasket I got came in a kit, and that seemed to be okay, but I've since contacted AH Spares, and they make their own head gasket, which they tell me is far superior even to the original, and that they have had some problems with the head gasket in the kit. So, you know, you do a lot of work and something like that happens, and it's pretty disheartening, really. So I'm going to have to re-attack this. It's not huge, but it's, I don't know, it's just as I say, a bit disheartening. So I'll probably wait till the weather cools a bit, and it might be a little winter job to do. But apart from that, as you can see, everything runs pretty sweet. I haven't adjusted the timing properly. It's just sort of guessed and put into position. I haven't adjusted the carburetors properly, you know, but it does seem to be pretty sweet. Just a little word of warning: if you do remove the head, you know that you have to take off the rocker gear on the top, and the rocker pedestals are made of aluminium, and one of them has a pipe tapped into it that is an oil feed pipe. Now, it's a 1/8 BSP thread, which is very fine, and I knew when I put the engine together that I had to be careful, but this time I stripped the thread. So what I did was I reused one of the other rockers, re-drilled it, the rocker pedestals, re-drilled it and re-tapped it for that particular thread, and then plugged the hole in the old one. So I can't really show you because obviously I've got to take the rocker cover off to do that. So that's about it so far, I think, and I guess under the circumstances I'm pretty pleased with it. It's coming along, but the issue with the head bubbling, I don't know whether it's oil that's bubbling out of there or coolant. I've got water in there at the moment because I thought I'd run water in it just so that I could drain it out a few times just to clean everything out before I put coolant in. But of course it's a bit hard to see because the water and the oil are both the same colour. So I'm not quite sure what's coming out of there, but yeah, there you go. So that's it. I don't know when I'll be doing another video. We'll see how we go with everything. And that's it for now, I guess.